Week 11 is in the books, and here we are ready to tackle yet another week in the NFL. A lot of games to get to later today. And if you missed it during the game this weekend in Dallas, the roof completely fell apart. I don't know if that caught people off guard. Certainly caught Jerry Jones off guard, but I'm wondering if that caught people off guard more than Mike Tyson's ass.
At
Pre-Jake
Jerry
Paul
World.
fight.
Also
At Jerry World of all places. Yeah, it was quite a weekend for Mr. Jerry Jones.
I did not watch any of the Paul Tyson fight. I knew exactly what was going to happen.
You knew it was going to be terrible.
I knew, and it was funny. So on our newscast this morning on our morning show, we did this thing. It's like, oh well, the numbers are in, and the Paul Tyson fight was the most bet on, like fighting match, like UFC or boxing, in like sports, the online sports book betting history. So since the sports books have gone online, it's the most people have bet on a fighting match. And it was so funny as I'm reading this and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then we're on the couch. It's one of those segments where you're like on the couch talking about, things like that, not like the hard hitting news. And then my co-host reads, yes. And if you want to know how much money it was about equal to what people bet on a normal Monday Night Football game.
For real, though.
Yeah, and I lost it. I was like, that just goes to show you the dominance of the NFL. On an average Monday Night Football game is what people bet about on Logan Paul and Mike Tyson. And I will say this, I bet on Monday Night Football, and I had a parlay, Texans to win, CJ Stroud over 200 yards passing, CJ Stroud over one touchdown pass, 1+ touchdown pass. I had it boosted in the FanDuel Sportsbook for up to like plus 140 or something. So I was like, oh, this is great. This is such an easy win. So I put more money on it than I normally would. I'm like, that's an easy win. First play of the game, touchdown, and Nico Collins gets taken back. I'm like, it's okay. CJ Stroud's going to throw another touchdown.
Yeah.
Nope.
And then the rest is history. Did throw a pick, though.
Nope.
It was.
I went to bed and I was like, you've got to be bleeping kidding me. It was one of my worst losses of in a long time.
Yeah, rough. That was the Joe Mixon show over there, that's for sure. But that was about it, unfortunately, for that one. But yeah, the Houston Texans got the win nonetheless, so they looked pretty good in a Monday night game. A lot of really good games. We were talking about the Week 11 preview, when we were, discussing the show a little bit last week and on all of the, juicy matchups that we were getting treated to, and really didn't disappoint. There's some really good games.
And Dan, from here on out, it's nothing but every weekend's got at least 3 or 4 must-watch games because it's so many divisional games. The NFL has done this on purpose. Just as the NBA and NHL and other sports are going, the NFL ramps up its schedule. They know they're going to get views at the beginning of the year because we're all excited for football to come back. And now the college football is dwindling. Their schedule is running out. And the NFL has 6 games left plus the playoffs. It is nothing but marquee matchups. And hopefully Jerry Stadium stays intact for the rest of the season. Yeah. That was scary. Did you see the video? It almost fell on a dude. A piece of the stadium.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Some like the metal sheets. Yeah, and Jerry's explanation of it was kind of curious too. He's like, "Oh, there was a lot of wind outside, and the wind got into the stadium portion, and so the wind was creating a lot." I was like, "Dude, what you guys? It's like a multi-billion-dollar facility. You can't
just go trade another 4th-round pick for a receiver that gets no catches and no yards on Monday night."
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful, beautiful stuff, and maybe pay your slightly above average quarterback legendary
the
money.
Most money.
That's also a good thing to go with. All right, let's get to it. Week 11 recap. Here we go. I saw your reaction there.
The MVP and the coach of the year on the title card there. I love it.
A couple award winners lined up here on the thumbnail for today's show. I like it. I'm looking forward to some more of those down the road for sure. As always, we do our best win, worst loss of the week, but before we get to that, I did want to talk about a couple items of breaking news, somewhat breaking, I guess, earlier this morning. The Giants announced that they're benching Daniel Jones. Well, that was a couple days ago, but over the weekend, the Giants announced they benched Daniel Jones. And it's not Drew Lock, Mark, that's taking the start. It's Tommy Cutlets, Tommy DeVito getting the start, Drew Lock to back up, meaning Daniel Jones is not just relegated to the bench. He could be inactive for some games potentially as the number 3 quarterback. It's a pretty interesting turn of events.
They're in the Denver situation last year with Russell Wilson. If he gets injured, Daniel Jones, they owe him everything. So they can't afford that. And they're not going to Drew Lock because they want to lose games now. They're in the tank mode. But to me, it's an indictment again. I can't remember the general manager's name in New York. But New York Jets fired the general manager. And I don't think that Douglas should have been fired. But Shane should be fired. You spend all that money on Drew Lock. You spend all that money on Daniel Jones.
You don't sign Saquon Barkley.
On Barkley, and and look at where your franchise is right now. Brian Daboll, I believe, is a head coach in this league, as a capable, above average head coach in this league. I believe if they clear house, Brian Daboll will be a starting head coach somewhere in the NFL next year. I believe that the Giants are a team that has just completely mismanaged their star players. They've done a good job bringing in talent. They have a good defensive line. They have nice pieces on the offensive line, but they have completely mismanaged their stars. And they're waving the white flag, and they should, which just means the Thursday Thanksgiving Day game between them and the Cowboys is going to be hilarious. That's the game to eat your meal during. Don't eat your meal during Bears Detroit. Watch Detroit put on a symphony of gorgeous football. Then eat your meal while the Giants and the Dallas Cowboys are trying to both lose the game, and then settle in with a full stomach for the Packers and the Dolphins in a must-win game for the Dolphins on Thursday night.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it'll at least help inform how we're going to be planning our days next week. So
yeah,
that's always nice. We have a little clarity going into that one. I agree with you that they're probably starting Tommy DeVito because it likely gives them the best chance to just get the higher draft pick. That to me is the only viable explanation, because I think this is brutal to sell to anybody else for any other reason. To say that Drew Lock, who was your backup quarterback all season long, who's, fighting for his career as well, trying to get back into the, starting role, hoping that he can pull some magic from like Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield or some of those. This kind of sucks for Drew Lock because finally had an opportunity to put some tape out there again and see if he can resurrect something. So if I'm the Giants, and I'm making this move because I think Tommy's going to provide some sort of spark for the team, I think that's a terrible, terrible move. And I think it's a brutal, blow to Drew Lock. But again, as we talked about, this is probably just foreshadowing to a let's not win any more games.
I disagree. I think it's great for Drew Lock because if he puts tape out there, it's going to be horrible, and he'll probably won't get another job. But he can it
can't be worse. Then
he can just stash himself on the bench and be like, no, I could be a great backup quarterback. I could be your guy as a good locker room guy. I'm giving a hard time there. And then I think Tommy DeVito. The thing is, it's easy to sell the fans to because he was such a fun fan story.
He's the fan guy.
That the guys are like, hey, Tommy DeVito, like let's have a little fun, like Italian pride, and so. Listen, New York football is in a tailspin right now, and both situations are not good.
Yeah, no, it's brutal times over there at MetLife Stadium. I would not want to be a member of those organizations right now. It's kind of brutal. And we get to the other organization there, the New York Jets. This was the breaking news that dropped earlier today. The Jets firing general manager Joe Douglas. What an absolute shit show. And this is funny. America is laughing at the New York Jets right now, and they have been for some time. This now completes the cycle of just a total clown fest that's happening there in New York. You fire the only thing that could make the semblance of sense here is that maybe was Joe Douglas the one that was pushing really hard to get Aaron Rodgers and salvage this thing? If that was the case, then I could see maybe Woody Johnson said, if we're going all in and I'm giving you the reins to sign Aaron Rodgers and let you do that, you're tying yourself to him and you're owning what goes down. I don't think that's what happened, though. I think this was Woody Johnson wanting to get Aaron Rodgers in here and letting him run the show. And I think Joe Douglas is possibly just a sacrificial lamb in this whole thing. The guy's drafted pretty well. He's put together a decent roster.
He missed on Zach Wilson.
Quarterback right.
Yeah, he missed on Zach Wilson. That's his biggest crime. Dan, it's interesting. So shout out to I was listening to The Herd when the news broke. I immediately went to Colin Cowherd. And I loved two things I learned in that show that I think are really worth repeating that I want to expound on a little bit here with this is the fact that, number one, what happened last week? It was leaked that Aaron Rodgers, he said to the media, I want to be back next year. Yeah, I definitely want to be back. And then there was the leak that came out, well, the organization might not want Aaron back. Well, Woody Johnson was the one, as you said, who courted Aaron Rodgers, not the GM, not the head coach. Woody Johnson was the one who flew his private jet wherever it needed to be to go get Aaron Rodgers and all the retreats and all the darkness and get him to New York. If Aaron maybe said something to Woody like, what happened? What how did that leak come out? Who in the organization said that? Woody probably, made the decision then like, oh, you know who it must have been. Let's get rid of the bad man, and we're going to protect Aaron Rodgers. The only other thing it is, and Nick Wright brought this up on Colin's show, and credit to Nick, he's not wrong here. It's a real possibility. During the previous Trump administration, Woody Johnson was an ambassador, and Woody Johnson had to give up day-to-day operations of the Jets when he was an ambassador for the Trump administration. There's a legitimate chance that Woody Johnson could once again be an ambassador. And so Nick Wright brought up, he's probably trying to line the team up with a new coach and a new GM for the next couple of years before he hands control back over to his brother like he did. So that could be why it's an early firing of the GM. Either way, I think it's, again, it just, like, think about that as you're a fan of the team and you don't care about the presidency and you don't care about, like, you're just a fan of the team, and like either situation, one of them is most likely true, is a freaking nightmare as a fan of that team.
Yeah.
I would be ripping my hair out.
No, it's brutal. And like, again, this is just incredibly short-sighted if that is the goal, because even if Aaron Rodgers comes back next year, you have to win the Super Bowl next year then, because if you don't win the Super Bowl, all of this is essentially for naught. You're not saving the franchise. He's going to be gone, and you're just left with the pieces. Like, none of this makes any sense. This isn't building for anything, because the window really was this year to prove that you can compete with him. You haven't proven that. What is going to change and make this a viable Super Bowl contender next year? I just don't see it happening. What head coach are you going to go get?
Yeah,
that Aaron
which
Rodgers
coach wants Aaron Rodgers and wants to run Aaron Rodgers' offense? What
coach does Aaron Rodgers want?
I know, dude. It's a mess.
You want Nathaniel Hackett to be the head coach? Is that what the plan is here?
Nick Wright also said that it's a sinking ship, and if there's one person who definitely has done the Billy Zane thing and found a lifeboat for himself, it's Aaron Rodgers.
It's exactly.
And so who knows what that means? Like, who knows what that means? I added the Billy Zane part, but who knows what that means? Credit to me. And so, but you know what I mean? Like, that is what we're going to keep our eyes on it. The thing about it is their season's done now. So
yeah,
we kind of knew it was 2 weeks ago, but now with the loss, it's like officially done as far as the playoffs go. And this team was just built for a playoff run when they have Aaron Rodgers. So now we could just start to figure out what their plan is for next year, and then we can make judgment on whether we think it's the right decisions or not.
Yep. That's pretty much it, and that might very well be the last you'll hear of us talking about the New York Jets here in the 2024 season, because it is a wrap. All right, let's get to your best win of the week.
So, Dan, I'm calling an audible, and I am doing a worst loss. I have a worst loss, but I also have this week only my best loss. It's a great loss. It's an amazing loss. I'm going to sell this loss so hard. All right.
Let's hear it.
The Kansas City Chiefs had the best loss in the NFL season. Is the best loss in the NFL season. 2 reasons why. And my wife is a Chiefs fan. We're going to the Chiefs game next Friday, the Black Friday game. My step kids are all excited. My stepson loves the Chiefs and all this stuff. So I was trying to explain it to her. I was like, it's actually a great loss. And then it got me thinking. I was like, I need to change this segment. So why is it a great loss? The pressure of the undefeated season is now gone. It's gone. It's gone. And that is the best zit you can pop. It's so incredible. And when you get rid of that pressure, you don't have anyone asking you about it anymore. You don't have anyone thinking about it anymore. And if you're Andy Reid, about a little past the halfway mark of the season, you now get to refocus your team and say, hey, listen, we got beat. And we got beat pretty soundly against a team that we're most likely going to have to see again. So it gives them all of that motivation, right? It gives them all of that juice, the headlines, the quotes, the Josh Allen love. He probably is going to win the MVP now. So I think it's an incredible loss for Kansas City. I absolutely hate the fact that Kansas City may cost themselves the 1 seed. I don't think it's going to happen because you want home field advantage. But we saw last year, it didn't really matter for Kansas City. They went on the road in all those games. And what was the knock against Mahomes last year? He never won a road playoff game because he never played a road playoff game. And he went on the road and won. So there's nothing in my mind that can stop the Chiefs except for themselves. The only thing I will say about this is, the thing that is concerning is that it used to be in previous games when the Chiefs would get that lead like they did, 14-13, after the Bills playing a really, really good first half, it would be like, oh, shit. And now it's inevitable. And now Kansas City's going to tighten you like a boa constrictor like they do with that defense. And Mahomes is just going to wear you down with long drives, third down conversions, long drives, third down conversions. And they're going to end up squeaking out a victory, maybe with a last-minute drive. And what I will say this is concerning for the Chiefs is losing the game in the way they did, because Josh Allen, it's like him and Doug McDermott were lockstep about how to win this game.
Doug McDermott, dude. The pride of Creighton.
Sean McDermott. Dougie Mack's still in the league, by the way. Sean McDermott of like lockstep about how to win this game, which is be aggressive and just go for the win. Like, do not settle for anything in the game. Buffalo was great. Josh Allen, I tweeted out, that's the MVP run right there. The Bills don't have to get the 1 seed for Josh Allen to win the MVP. If they go on to be a 3 or 4 loss team and win down the stretch, they get to 14 wins, 15 wins, which I think is very plausible for this Bills team. The stats he's putting up with that victory, this is his MVP now, especially with Lamar's ugly loss to Pittsburgh, where he just looked very, very, that offense looked very inept. Buffalo is flying high right now. The momentum should be on him. It's the best loss of the year. You get rid of that pressure, and now Andy Reid can go back to the training room and the tape and grill his guys a bit, and know that they're getting Pacheco back. They're still going to have Hollywood Brown at some point in time. And now they're working with Juju and Hopkins. Like, this Chiefs team is going to get rolling. They're going to be fine. This was a great loss.
Well, I agree they'll be fine. And I agree that the weight of an undefeated season can certainly, pun intended, I suppose, weigh on a team and individual players as well. But I disagree in the sense that I think the 1 seed is extremely important. I even for the Chiefs. So that's why I had the best win go to the Bills for this one, because
they have a chance of the 1 seed now. You're right.
Because they have a real
chance of the 1 seed.
They proved that they are the team, the only one that's been able to prove it so far this year that can beat the Chiefs. This wasn't a grand statement by the Buffalo Bills. I think some people are taking this too far to say like, oh, they're the big challenger because
the regular season before
they've done it. They've done this. It's nothing new. It's not a surprise. People saying like they finally beat the Chiefs. So, well, maybe for this year, yes, the Chiefs finally got beat. But I just think it was super important. I mean, that's a game obviously Buffalo could have easily lost as well. And they, carpe diem, took the bull by the horns and won the game behind their MVP quarterback who took over when it mattered most. Their defense holding Mahomes and company to 21 points. Like, this offense, we've talked about it, is not as incredible as they have been in years past. They've definitely leaned more on the defense in recent years, and this year's no exception. Getting Pacheco back is going to be huge, but I just think the 1 seed is super important, especially not so much for Kansas City not getting the 1 seed, but who gets it. Because if Kansas City has to go eventually on the road to Buffalo or Pittsburgh, those are really tough places to play. Now, again, like, if they do it, then we can no one can ever talk shit about the Chiefs and saying their three-peat was a fraud if they go back-to-back years on the road and this year's, goes through, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, one of those venues.
Listen, they're not a fraud even if they're the 1 seed. Of course, because you win 3 in a row with one of them having to go on the road. But I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, but I got to give my flowers to Buffalo because, it's way easier said than done to be able to pull it off. They are a great home team. I think the 1 seed matters more for Buffalo than it does for Kansas City. So that's why I think it was a great win, because you keep pace. If they went down to 8-3, Kansas City's at 10-0, Pittsburgh's at 8-2, things are looking real murky there. Now you have a lot to pick up on. Now it's a half a game difference now for the 1 seed for Buffalo. And, they have potentially a little bit, more forgiving of a schedule down the stretch.
They have a bye. They're on a bye this week, which is
and
great
a bye,
for Buffalo, because they get a bye and then it's the Niners. So a desperate Niners team. So Buffalo and Kansas City, neither of them have the easiest schedule in the world. I actually think Kansas City's schedule is a tiny bit easier. I also love, if I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan looking ahead, Pittsburgh, you get to go to Pittsburgh, right? So like you'll know by the end of the season, when it all shakes out, whether you're the 1 seed, 2 seed, 3 seed, whatever, you will have played Buffalo in Buffalo. You'll have played Baltimore in Kansas City, which most likely at this point in time now, if you play Baltimore again, it'll be in Kansas City, and you'll have played Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. So you'll know, like, they have such for a team that doesn't need all the help they can get, they're going to have all the help they can get. Yes, they have a ton of experience to grab back onto. But listen, Buffalo's still got to play Detroit, San Francisco, some really desperate teams. So to say that both these teams could have 2 losses still on their schedule, I think is very fair. And that would obviously still just give the edge to the Chiefs by a half a game. I love
that Buffalo gets to end the year Patriots. That's a great ending to your season.
Because if they need to win, they basically can build in 3 guaranteed wins at the end of the year. And then again, puts the pressure on Kansas City. The other thing, Dan, I was going to say is it's not only the best loss, but it's the best win. My other take on this would have been for the NFL, the ratings, and the fans, because of just what we said.
Yeah,
because
no doubt.
Now the 1 seed is no one's going to be resting anyone unless Pittsburgh and Buffalo, unless 2 of the 3 teams go on a huge tailspin and one of them goes undefeated. This is going to be a race to the finish for those 3 teams, and every game's going to matter until week 18. That's great for the fans. That's great for us. That's great for the ratings. And so that's a win in that way. And I love that your best win was still Buffalo. This game deserved this much chatter.
Yeah.
I think you agree with me right now, Alan. We both agree. I think Allen's the MVP. If I had to put money on it today,
yes,
I think he's deserving, especially because Lamar laid an egg. And I'm not going to say there's Lamar fatigue, but we'll talk about Lamar here in a little bit. I mean,
Derrick Henry's been a massive part of their success this year too. Not to take anything away from Lamar, but it's almost been entirely Josh Allen, this year. All right.
Him and that receiving core has really come together.
Yes. Agreed.
Worst loss is easy. San Francisco. I mean, Dan, we were talking about it off air a little bit in the group chat. Here's the thing. Since CMC's been back, I think we thought, okay, CMC's back. They're good. CMC's looked good, but he hasn't produced in the way you thought he would. No touchdowns. No touchdowns. He hasn't taken over. And Dan, let's be very clear about what the Niners are currently. I want to pull this up. I have it saved, so I don't want to misspeak here. But what are the Niners currently? Not what they've been, not what we think of them in the past because of their coach and where they've been. But this is a Niners team that has wins. They're 5-5, right? So they have 5 wins, 5 losses. Their 5 wins are the Jets at home, the Patriots at home. They then beat the Seahawks on the road, and then they beat the Cowboys at home, and they beat the Buccaneers on the road in a very close game when Baker almost took them down to the wire and won without his 2 top wide receivers. And we needed Brock Purdy to be very special in that game. Their losses now: Seattle at home, the Chiefs at home, the Cardinals at home, and then the Rams on the road and the Vikings on the road. Dan, they're losing their division. They're 1-3 in division. That kills them. At this point in time,
yeah.
I don't see how the Niners win the division. I really don't. They still have games, Dan. Again, they're at Green Bay, at Buffalo, the next 2 games. Home against at Green Bay, at Buffalo. I mean, they should not be favored in either of those 2 matchups from the way they're currently playing. When they get one guy back in CMC, Kittle goes out. I really think the Niners right now are the classic example of a team that has the names we recognize because they've been involved so much. But then they are a broken, beat-up roster. This is a team that has run out of steam. And Brock Purdy, while he's not the issue, he's not the type of quarterback that can elevate a team that's decimated by injuries to just go on a run here. And let's be honest about Kyle Shanahan as well. He's had some shaky decisions, and their kicker has been shaky. There's a lot about this team right now I'm just not buying into. And credit to Seattle. What a great win for Seattle.
That was a really good win. They were definitely a candidate for best win.
Geno Smith with that run at the end, it felt so much like the Josh Allen run. It was like we're watching these 2 plays back to back because it was like the Geno run and then 20 minutes later the Josh Allen run. And it felt for both of them this kind of elation on this like huge coming over the edge. McDonald is a rookie coach, and Seattle wasn't projected to do much. This division's wide open, and they're in it, especially with this win. I'm at a loss of what to do with the Niners. I said it last week on the episode. I don't believe the Niners make the playoffs, and this is another example of why I felt that at the time. And they can prove everyone wrong because we believe in the coach and they have the dudes. But remember, this was a noisy team all offseason. They spent a ton of money on Ayuk. He's not there. Ricky Pearsall is a great story, but he wasn't great in this game. He's been very okay since coming back. CMC has not looked like himself. Is this just how CMC is now? Kittle can't stay healthy. It's ugly. It's ugly in San Francisco right now. This has to be your worst loss too, right?
It is not my worst loss.
No.
But it was, among the top of the list. I have a different take.
Sell the Niners
to
me.
We talked about this. Like, I do think the Niners are a top 10 team in the NFL despite their record. And a lot of that just points to the data of how their team is performing. I mean, they're top 10 in points per drive. They're top 10 in points per game. They're top 5 in third down conversions. They're top 10 in adjusted net yards per passing attempt. Like, all of the analytics are pointing to success in their favor, despite all of the issues that they've had in terms of health. And so I think a lot of their losses, while they've been bad, that you can't have them. I don't think they've been as much of an indictment on the 49ers as they have been. I don't want to say luck, because I think that's like an unfair thing to toss around at this point. You're 5-5. You are what your record says you are. But I just don't take away from their losses that, this team's, in the dirt. I think they're a good football team. And I just think that they haven't put it all together yet. But I think they're about to. Like, I think they're on the precipice of something that they can make a late run and really like, this type of adversity that they haven't really faced the past years. This is going to test the team. But they, like you said, they have the guys to do it. And they have, their numbers suggest that they would do well. I mean, their defense has really been the biggest liability for them, which is, kind of weird to say. Outside of obviously Brock Purdy not being the guy that you need him to be.
Now, can I just ask you, just really quick? I totally respect all those stats, but if this was your team, right? Like, and if I threw all these stats at you and be like, Dan,
it wouldn't give you solace, right?
Like, you have all of these things going for you. So what's wrong? Like, what is so? I ask you to what is that kernel in the back of your mind that has a little bit of doubt with the Niners? Like, what? I just want to know what you see. What is your major red flag where you're like, listen, if like, do they the Packers game is a must win, right? Like, it's a must win.
Yeah. No, I think their defense just gives up too many, backbreaking plays when they can't, and I get it. Like, they only give up 20 points. You should win those games where you only give up 20 points. I understand that.
At home.
These are like divisional games. Like, you have to step up at times. And I'm still going to blame the offense for their lack of production in many areas, like, no doubt. But I just like, I take some comfort if I'm a 49ers fan and saying like, okay, like, we're not bottom of the league, even if like it looked like it for a game, or even if we dropped one. Like, you mentioned their wins being not impressive, but their losses aren't to scrubs. They've lost to the Chiefs this year.
But that's why I'm concerned. It's like they haven't beaten any of the good teams.
Right, and I understand that, but they have beat Seattle. They did beat Seattle. They beat the Bucs despite not having Mike Evans. It's still a Bucs team that won, impressively without Mike Evans. Although they're on like a losing streak now. I get that. I like, they'll have a chance. They have a chance these next 6-7 weeks. They have obviously a tough schedule.
If they go on a 4-game win streak, they're all the way back because of the teams they will beat.
Do that,
but see, like, but that's.
I think they could go. I think they could go 3-1 the next 4 weeks. So I could see that happening. I think they'll beat Green Bay next week,
and then
I think they'll lose to Buffalo.
Bills, beat the Bears,
and I think they'll beat the Bears. So actually, I could see them going 2-2. Over the stretch, because they could lose to the Rams. They could definitely lose to the Rams.
It's tough.
And the Dolphins, I take them beating the Dolphins.
Then you're 7-7, 8-7. Yeah, maybe they're resting for the 1 seed. Yeah, they still have the Packers, the Bills, the Lions.
It's a tough schedule. I still have a feeling that the Cardinals-Niners game is going to be a decisive one at the end of the year.
So if the Niners don't win the division, who's winning the division, in your opinion? If you had to put a second,
I think Arizona.
I would agree.
As good as the Rams have been playing, I think it's Arizona.
I just don't trust the Rams are going to stay healthy through it all. Like, even Puka on that great touchdown grab in that game, it's like, oh, is he hurt again? It's like, dude, the fucking Rams, dude.
It's like
when they are healthy, they're so impressive. But when they're the least like trustworthy health team. All right, so what is your worst loss then? I'm shocked it wasn't this, knowing you as a Niner supporter, but who is it?
My worst loss was the Bengals ending their season to the Chargers.
That was my second.
34-27. Because the swing here was to go 5-6 on the year and start to kind of crawl your way back into this race. Now that you have fallen to 4-7 in a winnable game, in a game where obviously your quarterback played as lights out for most of this game. The defense just, once again, can't even come up with a simple play for this team. And it's brutal. It sucks for Cincinnati that they get let down that consistently. And their run game wasn't able to do anything in this one. And, the Chargers were giving them life there for a time. And the Bengals are able to claw back. But the fact that they started slow was their demise. Like, that was their problem, digging themselves into that massive 24-6 hole at the half. You just can't let that happen in today's league, especially when you're playing a team as good as the LA Chargers. So look,
go Chargers.
Do they have the talent to make some sort of incredible run where they go 5-1 down the stretch here, yes, I wouldn't be absolutely shocked if they pulled that off. But I'd still be surprised, Mark. And given how bad, I mean, how much better does Joe Burrow have to play?
It's not.
I mean,
and
he could throw 5 touchdown passes, still lose a game. We've seen it. So there clearly needs to happen. They have to play Pittsburgh twice.
Yeah.
So can they go 5-1? They got to play Pittsburgh twice. They got to play the Browns. They got to play the Broncos, who are looking pretty decent. They got to win 5 of those 6 games. It's a tall order. So I probably think it was the nail in the coffin for their season, and that's why it's my worst loss.
They probably got to win 6 of 6 too. This stat is so fascinating. Listen to this. This is from Jacoby Kane, K on Facebook. Through the first on Twitter, X, the everything platform. Through the first 11 games, the 4-7 Bengals, Joe Burrow has 3,028 passing yards, 27 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. It's insane.
MVP,
listen to this.
Like if they had a winning record.
There are only 4 other players in their team's first 11 games to put up those numbers. So 3,000 yards, 27 plus touchdowns, and 5 or fewer interceptions. That's an insane stat line. It's only happened 4 other times.
Oh, in history.
Yes, the only 4 other times through first 11 games is that kind of stats. You want to know who?
Can I guess?
Tom Brady. Okay. Well, Tom Brady.
Well, yeah, Tom Dan Fouts?
No. In 07 and 15. And his teams went 16-0 and 13-3.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers in 2011 and 2020. His teams in those 2 years went 15-1 and 13-3.
Yeah. As you would assume they would.
There's 2 others. You want to take any stabs?
I mean, Dan Marino was a guess by, but everything's pointing now towards. So it's got to be Peyton Manning in 2015.
Peyton Manning threw too many interceptions, but he's not on that.
Okay.
Mahomes in 2020.
2020,
and he went 14-2. And the final one, recent guy, just retired a couple years ago.
Drew Brees?
Yeah, Drew Brees. And that team ended up 13-3. So to say that means the Bengals are going to be well below 500. Every other team that had a quarterback that's doing what Joe Burrow's doing, which is not turning over the ball, throwing touchdowns and yards, those teams had deep playoff runs, MVPs, Super Bowl aspirations. So if you are a Bengals fan, my heart breaks for you. And all I can say is that you must tweet every day, go on the local radio stations every day, buy billboards, and tell your dumb, cheap owner to sign T. Higgins, to sign Jamar Chase, and keep this core together. And then all you have to do is spend your entire draft on defense and an interior offensive lineman. And like, honestly, like, and you just got to get cheap but good on defense, and cheap on average on defense. If they were just average on defense, they were 15th, 16th in the league on defense like they were a couple years ago. This is a Super Bowl team. And Joe Burrow is so freaking good and so special. So my heart breaks for him. As far as the Chargers go, I'm officially at I'm if I ever quit the Bears, it'll be for the Jim Harbaugh Chargers, because I just imagine that's my life. My team should have hired.
You're seeing it play out.
I'm just like, no, that's my team. It's like
those visualization boards or whatever.
There is a Mark in a different universe who's living that life where Jim Harbaugh chose the Bears over the Chargers and the Bears chose to fire Eberflus. And that Mark is fucking 7-3 and he's so happy. And he's like, my team's got an identity and we just fucking pound the rock and our quarterback is efficient as hell.
I wonder what that Dan Steelers are doing in that universe, because
that Dan Steelers is let's see, in a twilight world for them.
Mark Trestman has been the head coach for 25 years, and they have 2 winning seasons.
Yeah,
but the management's too loyal.
But they won't fire him.
They're just too loyal to Mark Trestman.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, listen, I know there's not much else to say about the Chargers. Here's my thing with the Chargers. We said it last week. This was a great win, because we had said, like, they have a tough road. it's still a tough road, but this win helps them inch closer to locking in one of those wild card spots. And
Herbert
so
looked great too. I mean, he definitely petered off late third quarter, early fourth. He really there were drives he had to have, but he came through when they needed it.
Jim, some bad play calling. They got away from the run there, and they went 3 and out with some throws, and it's
dialed up too many deep. Yeah,
yes.
There was nothing happening underneath for a little while there.
The Chargers are a Amon-Ra St. Brown away from being a legit oh shit, this team is legit. If they can find themselves in the draft, and I'm sure Jim can because he knows college game, he knows the talent. If they can find themselves an Amon-Ra St. Brown type player, just an absolute stud of a wide receiver number 1 who can go pair with McConkey and Quentin Johnson, then they're going to be a mess to deal with next year.
Yeah, because J.K. Dobbins has seemed to find his footing in his home there in L.A. He's really good.
He did everything the Bears didn't do the last 2 heartbreaking losses. He called the timeout on the Hail Mary when the Bears didn't, and he ran the ball instead of settling for the field goal. It's just...
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to the Bears game here shortly because I did want to ask you a couple questions about that. But first, let's talk about the Eagles-Commanders real quick. That was the Thursday night game. Eagles win 26-18, but pretty decisively, I'd say, in Saquon
Second
Barkley.
Half.
Obviously, they really came through in the fourth quarter, especially 20 points in the fourth. Kind of sealed the deal. They're really starting to find their rhythm, man. I mean, I know that they got off to kind of a little bit of a shaky start this year, and we were wondering, where this was headed. And there was even a point in the middle of the season where we were like, is Nick Sirianni going to be out of here before the season's over? But they've turned a corner. Jalen Hurts is playing really well. They're getting all of their weapons, firing on all cylinders. And yeah, it's looking pretty good. Meanwhile, I'm a little concerned now about the Commanders that they're now putting themselves together a little streak here. That's a little concerning, but they're playing with house money, right? So
yeah, I'm not concerned about the Commanders. You look at their schedule, they'll get to 10 wins. They're probably not going to beat anyone in the playoffs, but it is they are the way ahead schedule team. They're the Texans of last year, right? Maybe they can upset someone. Maybe Jalen goes off. He's that type of player. He seems like he's a confident kid who would have a great playoff game. I'm not worried about them at all. They're going to make the playoffs, and if they don't, then we have a real concern, right? Because their stretch is so winnable for them that it would be an epic collapse if they don't. For the Eagles, I'll just say this. What a gutsy win to just say, no, this is still our division. And they needed that because Sirianni needed it. The fan base needed it. And Philly is officially the second team in the NFL where you just look at the roster and just dudes everywhere. There's so many dudes. And my only concern with Philly was the coaching. And right now, Sirianni has stabled the ship, and the offense is working really well. Kellen Moore, the balance, the run game with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley is the deadliest backfield in the NFL right now. They're almost impossible to stop in the red zone. Big win for Philly.
Huge. They are currently the 4 seed in the entire league right now. If you were to do it just by the points and the record. I don't know where you put them in your rankings, but do you have them as a top 5 team or just outside of the top 5 maybe?
I actually did bump them up. I'm gonna look really quick. That's a great question. I did bump them up. I have Philly at number 6. So I have them.
Yep. So I have right there.
I have them behind.
Same here,
wait.
Actually,
no. I have them at 6. No, I actually
have them at 5.
5.
Okay, so they're 5 for you. They're 6 for me. No, I think they earned jumping up the leaderboard a little bit in this one.
I would agree. It just felt like a really important win at home to kind of stabilize everything. Those 3 touchdown drives in a row in the second half. I mean, it's just everything locked into place. Pumped about the Eagles. So if you're an Eagles fan, you should be ready. Them in Detroit look like a battle of the Titans that we can't wait to watch in the NFC.
I'm not going to say too much about the Bears-Packers game. I kind of want to give you the floor. Early on to start off. The only thing I tweeted afterwards was the Bears are just cursed, man, because this was the closest Bears-Packers game where you had hope for a good portion, that they could somehow win it. and then more tomfoolery happens late in the game. And I've seen the video that's been going around, which is kind of remarkable because, not having as intimate of a seat as you do to this team, I had forgotten how many times on a second down they've elected to just kick the field goal. They
I
had
have
Mark
the tweet.
Trestman,
It's
Mark Trestman, Matt Nagy, and now Matt Eberflus all have elected to kick 45-plus yard field goals on a second down, and they all give almost the exact same excuse that they didn't want to fumble the ball and they trusted their kicker and all this stuff. That's
2013.
That's just inexcusable, man. That's almost like malpractice.
It's coaching scared.
I've never seen that happen.
It's coaching scared because what all three of those guys have in common is that they all are people who are not confident alpha men. Like they're not alpha dudes who are saying to themselves, I want to win a goddamn football game.
That's just at least not their philosophy when
they
it comes
are
to
saying,
football,
like,
for sure.
No, the data says, and we feel good about this. It's like, no, go win the goddamn football game. That's what you saw Jim Harbaugh do. He won the football game. Yeah, that was listen, I have so many screenshots. That was Kevin Fishbane pointed out, really smart. He's a great follow if you're a Bears fan. Robbie Gould in 2013, Eddie Pinheiro, who's now the most accurate kicker in NFL history in 2019. Yeah, the Bears cut him, and Cairo Santos in 2024. What makes the Santos one crazier is that Cairo Santos inside of 40 yards is a 70 for 70 in his Bears career inside of 40 yards. So I'm not saying they're going to get
70 for 70.
70 for 70.
That's got to be including extra points, right?
No, field goals in his NFL career.
Oh, NFL career. Okay, I thought you said
he is perfect from inside of 40. Now he has the weakest leg in the NFL, and we know that.
Yeah.
And he really has to be below 50. He cannot hit 50 or above, and he really should be like 48 and under. And so for them to feel good about 46 outside in the Windy City, it's dumb. It's absolutely dumb. I have a couple other things I want to read just because it just makes me feel better when I read them. Matt Eberflus record as a head coach of the Bears, 13-30, 0-5 against the Packers, and he has blown 6 games with a 95% win percentage chance. And I know one of the years, his first year, they were purposely trying to tank. But last year, you were trying to win. This year, you're trying to win. So I'm not gonna preface that anymore. That some of those losses were in a tank year. If you're a coach who's trying to win football games and trying to build a culture, this is 3 straight years of absolute ineptitude in doing that. Since 1940, the Bears are now 101, 24-2. When they have 0 turnovers in offense and create a takeaway on defense. 3 of those losses have come in the last 3 weeks. And so, again, that's coaching. That's the difference. It's coaching, right? First down, Adam Hodge, great follow as well. First down at the Bears 29. Oh, yeah. This is the Jim Harbaugh tweet, just promoting Jim Harbaugh. He was like most of us who wanted Jim Harbaugh. This is from Paul Hembo on Get Up. The Bears are 5-17 in one-score games under Matt Eberflus. That is the worst record in the NFL. Again, coaching matters drastically.
Have you seen the video, Mark, of the
3 coaches all saying it? Yeah.
Because I have it queued up. I wonder if we should play it
if you can go for it. I'll say this: what's so funny is the one coach that was not shown in this video, who was also hired by George McCaskey, was John Fox.
Yeah, it's very true. All right. Here, let's play this. This is Mark Trestman back in 2013.
Nagy.
His answer after they settled for a 47-yard field goal on second down in overtime.
Yes.
Then it's Matt Nagy in 2019, settled for a 46-yard field goal
on second down,
or 41-yard field goal on second down. And then most recently, Matt Eberflus here with the 46-yarder on second down. Here we go.
I just wanted to hit on the field goal at the end of the game and going for a field goal at the end of the game, and just the reason behind that. And it's very simple. Once we got inside the 30-yard line, we were going to kick it. We were well within Robbie's range. We ran the ball on first down, got 3. We're sitting there at 2nd and 7, and the ball's in the middle of the field, well within Robbie's range. And with all the things that had happened throughout the game, including Minnesota's failure to make
Zero accountability.
penalties, we're in a
Sounds
great
like a
position right
eulogy.
there to kick it and finish the game. And that's the decision.
Also, the Bears have had 3 great kickers in all this scenario. Robbie Gould, Eddie Pinheiro, and Cairo Santos. Great kickers.
Matt Nagy here.
I'm not even going to get into that. That's
What a fucking idiot.
Of, running the ball and taking the chance of fumbling the football, or they know you're running the football, so you lose 3-4 yards. So that's that wasn't even in our process as coaches to think about that.
That's great.
We were in field goal range before the scramble, and then we got the scramble. So
we don't even think about it.
Time to run another one play
And
to set up the field goal. What was the conversation?
Yeah, they were loading the box there, so you could say you could do that for sure, maybe get a couple more yards, but you also risk, fumbling and different things there. We felt where we were, if we at the 30.
How about you don't fumble because you're professional football players?
Inside there, I felt very confident where we were at that time with the wind and where we were on the field.
What kills me so much about this game is it was the Packers, right? Like I know I should, like, my analytic brain, and if I pull myself away, say it's a good loss, right? Like, it's another cap in the feather of getting Matt Eberflus fired. Caleb was really good. The Bears' offensive new play caller, Thomas Brown, was very good. And it just goes to show you what we all saw at earlier in the year and what we all believed in Caleb is if you have average offensive line play, Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright were back. The tackles were back in this game. They only gave up 3 sacks. 2 of them were on that final drive when the Packers were going all out, which was great defense by the Packers to know, let's just send the house at this kid, which was great. Caleb then beat that on the 3rd and 19, and then the 4th down throw as well, which, again, so amazing. It just goes to show you, if you have a competent play caller and average offensive line play with these weapons, Caleb Williams can be one of the better quarterbacks in the National Football League and a special playmaker. And he was that. He was better than Jordan Love. They dominated time of possession. The Bears were the better football team. And honestly, for most of the game, came in with a really solid game plan. They kept the ball out of Jordan Love's hands. It was exactly what you want to do to a more talented offense. But what could Matt Nagy's, remember, he's the defensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator head coach. He was the one who gave up the giant pass plays late in the game to let the Packers score touchdowns. He was the one who couldn't get a sack. Montez Sweat was nowhere to be found. You couldn't scheme your guys open and get them the matchups to actually get pressure. The Bears defensive line got no pressure the whole game. And so I know I should be happy, right? Caleb looked great. Bears lost in a tragic way. That helps get Matt Eberflus fired. But it's the Packers. We've lost 11 straight to the Packers. When the Chicago Bears 6 years ago last beat the Green Bay Packers in December of 2018, Disney Plus had not been invented yet.
That's incredible.
I mean, like, and when the Bears last beat the Packers, the Bears still had the record in the series for most wins in NFL history and had the over on them for most wins in the series. And now we've lost 11 straight, which is tied for the worst in franchise, like in the matchups for these teams. I think I saw somewhere too, since Brett Favre took over in 1992, it's like 45-15-1 or something like that. They have absolutely owned the Bears in my lifetime. I was born in 1990.
People have talked about it. It's not the great rivalry that, unfortunately we all were treated to for so long.
And what's crazy is the Bears are still only like 3 games back in this rivalry, which goes to show you pre-90s, like the Bears owned the Packers. And so what has changed in my lifetime? I mean, it was when my little brother was born. Maybe I'll blame him. I don't know. But I'll just say this: it's that's what makes it annoying. Like I could make the justification. Like, listen, I absolutely like right now in my head are saying like, yeah, you should probably lose to the Vikings next week. Like, Caleb, do this again. Caleb look good, throw a couple touchdowns, move around, run the ball, keep the ball in his hands, keep him clean, don't sack the quarterback and lose 27-24. Like honestly, now once the game starts, I'll bet him. I'm going to want him to win. I'm a diehard. That's the way it goes.
Sure.
But it's a different feeling, right? Like I was angry after the Washington loss. I was so dejected after the Cardinals loss. After the Patriots loss, I was furious because that's when it's like, now it's time to pull the plug. And after this loss, there was no emotion. I was dead inside, and I still feel that way.
Kyle Brandt said that exact thing. He said, when I was watching the block, he's like, it was just complete lack of any feeling.
I was sitting on my couch, and I didn't even react. I just flipped the channel back to CBS to watch the other games. It's like, apathy is really setting in for the Bears, and it's frustrating. Listen, as far as the Packers go, man, Josh Jacobs is a stud, and they should be thanking their lucky stars they got out of there with a win. They're still a playoff team, but I don't know, this Packers team, it feels very different from last year's Packers team. Remember, because they went on an 8-game tear to end the season. They're in that window now, the same window they were in last year, and they just don't feel the same. Jordan Love doesn't feel
they're
quite
a very beatable
right.
team.
They feel very beatable, and I'm not sure exactly why. From watching that game, it felt like they relied on nothing but big plays. And maybe that's just what the Bears defense allowed them to do. But Josh Jacobs is an absolute stud. I think their game against the Niners next week is going to be a must watch.
No, that's going to be a good game. It's going to be, life support game for the 49ers probably too. The Lions absolutely destroyed the Jacksonville Jaguars. That was expected, but 52-6 was maybe not expected. That was, they're still blowing the lids off everybody, dude. And David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs they're both individually. I've never seen a backfield duo dominate every game. They're great.
They're not Thunder and Lightning. They're not Thunder and Lightning. They are both just two of the top 5 NFL running backs in the league.
Right. Yeah. They're both incredible. It's amazing. And it's perfect because they both get the rest that they need throughout the game. And that's going to make them such a difficult team to prepare and beat late in the season because they're going to have fresh legs every drive. And that's tough.
Dan, they're the first NFL. Think about this. They scored 50 plus points in back-to-back games. Okay. In one of the games, their quarterback threw less than 100 yards. And in the other game, they scored 52 points and their quarterback threw 400 yards and 5 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns, whatever it was. So
they can do it all.
What? How?
Yeah.
When Mahomes was at his peak and the Chiefs were dropping 50 burgers, it's because Mahomes is dominating you.
Yeah.
This is different. And I get it. It's against bad competition. But that's the thing that's special about Detroit is they don't play with their food. You get so angry at Mike Tomlin because Mike Tomlin beats the good teams and then he loses a random game to a bad team. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Get up
Just
for
play
it.
Down to the competition. Yeah.
Dan Campbell's culture that he has built there is so special. The only thing you can say if you want to pick apart the Lions is, well, in the big game against, the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, the Bills in the Super Bowl, who are you taking, Josh Allen or Jared Goff late? But the problem is, you can't even make that comparison because Jared Goff is just just another piece of this puzzle. And Jared Goff is not fucking Kirk Cousins. He's not. He is a legitimate top 10 quarterback who's played in a Super Bowl, who's played in an NFC title game, 2 of them with 2 different teams. So I tweeted it after the game. And I'm so pumped about it. We finally get to put the Lions at the top of the power rankings. I know some people already have. I'm one of those people, if you're undefeated and you're the 2-time Super Bowl champions, you're going to be number 1, even though I think another team is better than you. The Detroit Lions are the best fucking team in football. They can lose another game. It depends on how they lose. It'll be really interesting. But I'm still pumped for them, even though I'm a diehard Bears fan. I'm still excited for them. I want them to win it this year, just so then I can hate them next year. And I'm like, all right, fuck you,
Yeah,
Detroit.
so you can go back to it. Exactly.
Like,
you got yours, and
You got yours, and
Move
now and now I can hate you again.
yeah.
I'm speechless. I mean, they're just so special. They're so
No,
special.
they're really, really good. I mean, they've been towards the top of our rankings all year, and now they get to the top for you. I still have the Chiefs up there, but Detroit
Dan, can
very,
I
very close behind.
last thing? The Jaguars this time last year were 8-3.
It's unbelievable.
And then Trevor
Crazy.
Lawrence hurt his back. And think about what's happened
He's
to the
been-
Jaguars.
He's been now really injured throughout his career.
Dan, he
and
hurt
it's a
his back
problem.
at 8-3, and look at them ever since.
Yeah.
They are an absolute mess. And I'm surprised. I was surprised Doug Peterson wasn't fired. I give credit to the Jags and Tony
He's had
Khan.
some
Basically,
rough podium moments.
he's basically saying, "Screw it! Like, let's just lose it. Let's just lose all the games." And Doug and like, I don't want the interim bump. Let's just lose. And honestly, it takes a lot of guts to do that, because look at the interim bump of the Saints. It's hurting them. And you can see some other like Jaguars getting the number 1 overall pick would be huge for them. You could trade it for a ransom.
They're at least able to do what the Cowboys should have been doing the last 3.5, 4 years.
You could trade it for a ransom, and you're going to still have a decent chance to attract a above average head coaching prospect, because you have a quarterback locked up, and you have picks, and you have assets, and you have the only way to go.
Young players,
and a division that besides Houston you can make headway in.
Vikings beat the Titans. That's not a surprise either. Titans are 2-8 as well. Vikings 23-13 get the win. I'm still not overly impressed with Minnesota anymore, like I was earlier in the year. I'm glad they got the win, that you beat the team you're supposed to win. Kudos. I haven't moved them up my rankings. To me, they're like right on that 10 line. Like they're right there, because I just they haven't looked great the last 3 weeks.
No, but I still give them credit
They're
for
still winning.
They've beaten some really good teams, and they are playing with their food a little bit, unlike Detroit. But I think, again, what Detroit is doing is really special. I'll say this about Minnesota. You want a real concern about Minnesota? They don't have a run game. They are one of the bottom 10 teams in rush yards per game. Aaron Jones has been fine, but overall, they're relying way too much on Sam Darnold. And I get it, because Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson and Hawkinson are so good. And what Justin Jefferson just did with the most receiving yards through the first 5 years of his NFL career, and he's still got 7 games to go in the 5th year of his NFL career, is insane. You want to just get the ball in their hands, but you've got to. The weather's turning. You are facing teams that you have to keep the ball out of Detroit's hand. You have to keep the ball out of Philadelphia's hand if you want to beat them in the playoffs. That means you have to be able to run the ball. And Minnesota right now can't do that consistently. That would be my challenge to the Vikings over the next, 5 games or so heading to the playoffs. They're going to be a playoff team. They already got 8 wins. So find the run game. Find the ability to take the ball to the opponent's hands. And for Tennessee, again, this isn't the worst result in the world. Your defense plays really tough, even though you have an offensive coach. That's a positive sign. And your young quarterback made some plays, but it's still losing. And right now, again, gaining assets in that division, you're looking up at 3 other teams ahead of you. So losses are not the worst thing in the world for the Titans right now.
Yeah. No, I think that's very true. The Dolphins win 34-19 over the Raiders and kind of keep their NFL season alive, if you will.
Yeah, they're alive.
4-6. It was a good win. Tua throws 3 touchdowns.
He balled out.
It was a good game. That's pretty much all I have to say for it.
And I'll say this: Brock Bowers is a stud. Let's give him his flowers. I think he's
good,
averaging
So
the
good.
most targets and most catches on average per game. No matter who's playing quarterback for them, that was the right pick. And again, I credit the Raiders. You keep Max Crosby. Yes, you traded Devontae Adams. That's different. But you keep Max Crosby. You keep Brock Bowers. You have 2 amazing building block pieces to go off of for your franchise right now.
Yeah.
And that's great because if they're going to bring in a young quarterback, maybe a veteran quarterback. Let's see what they decide to do. And you're going to immediately say to yourself, hey, we have the pass rusher and we have your go-to weapon. So those are two huge holes to fill for any team. And so they're not in the worst situation. The problem again with them is just their division is extremely, extremely tough.
Yeah. That's the problem. AFC East is starting to get away from them already. The Rams barely beat the Patriots, but they do beat the Patriots. They're held scoreless in the fourth quarter, and the Patriots get 9 in the fourth quarter. Kind of made it a little bit closer than it was. But Stafford's 4 touchdowns, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, back to full steam. Kyron Williams' offense is starting to really pick up.
Like I said earlier, when they're all playing together, it's special. And Matt Stafford is the one quarterback in the NFC. When you look at the NFC legitimate contenders, he's the one quarterback who you can look at and go, if that dude is hot, like a goalie gets hot, you know what I mean, in hockey, there's not much you can do. Like he's Burrow is the new Matt Stafford in a lot of ways. And that way you're just like, what? Like, wow, how? Like the guy is just, he's tough. He's a baller. He scrambles still when he needs to. The one thing I'll say about Matt Stafford is you look at Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he looks like a guy who's an old guy intimidating Aaron Rodgers, like portraying him in a movie. Stafford still's got some mobility. He's still got some spark.
Yeah, and he's got the arm strength still too. Yeah.
And his arm is still absolutely 100% alive. And so I picked the Rams to win that division. I still feel good about that pick at this point in time. I'll say this about the Patriots. Drake May, again, great result. You lose and improves your draft pick, and he's the guy. Like he's going to be something in this league if they can support him in the right way. The Patriots are the perfect example of if they end up with the number 1 pick, if the Jaguars end up with the number 1 pick, take the haul. Like take the haul. You need like 4 or 5 dudes. You don't just need one guy. Take the haul. And so not a bad day for New England Patriots fans. Quarterback looked good, and you get an L.
All right, moving right along. Saints beat the Browns 35-14. Colts beat the Jets 28-27. Anything to say on either of those matchups?
Anthony Richardson, congrats to him. Hell of a game. 2 rushing touchdowns, 272 yards, and a passing touchdown. Shane Steichen and him seem to really click. And I know, listen, I know it's the Jets and they're dysfunctional, but the Jets are talented. Aaron Rodgers, looks like a shell of himself. And I'll say this quickly about the Saints and the Browns. Taysom Hill. Yeah. That's one of those I'm like, it doesn't make sense.
No sense.
He makes no sense. And every time I look
70-yard touchdown.
I'm like, what? Like, what in the hell? He's like 32. He's not like a young man.
Yeah.
He's a freak. And I think the Saints are an interesting story. They feel like the Dolphins to me. Like they're not gonna make it, but if they're playing like this, I'd be pissed if I see the Saints on my schedule coming up and I'm a team that's battling for a playoff spot.
That's true. Yeah. There
and the Browns,
more teams you'd want to face.
The Browns now feel like the opposite. The Browns feel very dead. Even though Jameis is fun, they feel very dead. And that's good if you're the Bengals.
Yes.
And the Steelers.
Yeah, that's very true. No, they look bad. Speaking of the Steelers, they win 18-16 over the Ravens. Could have been the win of the week, but I, of course, did give that to Buffalo. You could have given it to the Chargers. There were a lot of big wins, but no touchdowns from Pittsburgh. Obviously, their offense has a lot, left a lot on the table there. But the fact that they beat the surging Ravens, the fact that they beat a historic pace offense to 16 points, I still left that game feeling really good, even if the offense didn't produce a touchdown. And even though Russell Wilson seemed to take a step back for a game, it's the Ravens. It's a rivalry game. Yeah. You just got to come away with a dub.
I want to say this, and then you can go more. And this is really, first off, Boswell. I texted you, I tweeted you, like, the dude is electric. He's so good.
He's so good.
And he got and what's crazy is he signed him to a big deal, and he's playing even better. Because a lot of times, like, a kicker gets a deal, and then it's like, then they suck, and you're like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
we paid the kicker, and now he's in his head. I'll say this about Lamar: he has one win against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and
1-5,
and he missed some of those games. I think Tyler Huntley played in some of those Steelers-Ravens games. Like, that's
I think
a problem.
He's only 2-9 against Kansas City and Pittsburgh, something like that. It's like 2-9 or something. Like, that's not good. That's
a problem. And Lamar is a 2-time MVP. Lamar is a top 5 quarterback. Lamar is a special player. But we have to be honest about Lamar. The conversation cannot be when the Ravens lose in ugly fashion, when they start the game with a fumble, a punt, a missed field goal, punt. When you start the game against a division rival in a crucial game with that, the conversation is, well, they didn't get Derrick Henry involved enough.
Right.
That is an indictment on Lamar Jackson. Like, as great as Lamar is, and he's phenomenal, and I love Lamar Jackson, I would kill for Lamar Jackson. Like, that's why when we talk about the top 3 quarterbacks, we talk about Burrow, Allen, and Mahomes. And Lamar's not in that conversation because Lamar has not proven.
You got to rise to the biggest moment.
And let's be honest, consistently, you cannot be that bad against the most important rival in your division, and you cannot be that bad in the playoffs historically. And if you are the 2-time MVP, it should be fuck running the ball. Yeah, put the ball in Lamar's hands, throw the ball 35 times, win the goddamn game, go score some touchdowns. But instead, the conversation is the offense failed Lamar, and they asked him to throw it 33 times.
Right, yeah.
And look at his record when he throws it 33 times, he's below 500. It's like, well, wait a minute, isn't he the 2-time MVP? Like, that's a real problem. Also, anyone. PSA to the NFL. If you're playing Lamar Jackson or Jayden Daniels, just watch the Steelers and steal what they do. Now, you may not be able to do it because you don't have TJ Watt, but Mike Tomlin's figured it out.
Yeah, they eliminate the rush lane and they make you beat them through the air, but they also, they can get pressure with 4 so they don't need to blitz, and they can have extra people in coverage. I mean,
Dan, are you thinking Super Bowl?
How it works. Yeah, I don't know if I've let myself kind of like get overly optimistic about that, but it's certainly something that is now in play that I didn't think was in play at the beginning of the season. And I really didn't think even was play when they were 4-2, going to switch Russell Wilson. Now that Russ is 4-0 as a starter, now that they've beat the Ravens and Washington, like post their bye, that's given me that's made me feel a lot more comfortable that they can get to 12 wins, that they can get, if it's not the 1 seed, a top seed to where they'll have like home field advantage for like a round or 2. It is, yeah. I mean, yes, I'm starting to think that it's possible, especially because they're a complete team now. Like they can win with their offense because we've seen that now with Russ. They've been able to put up 30+ points multiple times. But we've also just seen their defense just shut down great offenses. And so, yeah, I think they can win a lot of different ways.
Can I ask you, if the Steelers were to not win the division, what happens to where if we're at closing week 18, you're like, hey, they made the playoffs, but they didn't win the division. What would you say? What's your concern? Like, what's the thing that you would know that, like, maybe it's hard. I'm asking, it's shitty for you to put this into the universe, knock on all the wood, right? But like, I don't watch them closely enough. Like, that game was on Red Zone. I'm checking in with that game. What would be the thing if I'm a Steelers fan, like deep down, I'm like kind of hiding this nervousness?
It would be them going 2-3 in the division the rest of the way. That's what it would be for me. They got 5 more divisional games on the docket, twice against the Browns, twice against the Bengals, 1 more against the Ravens.
Yeah.
If
so you got to be 3-2 or better.
You have to sweep the Browns.
Yeah.
To get those wins. And then you got to just hope that you could split with Baltimore and Cincinnati, which is which is what I think is probably going to happen.
From an X's and O's standpoint, though, like what's the thing on the team that give the viewers
their
a
run game fell
nugget?
apart. I mean, if they are forced to pass it 35 times a game with Russell,
They're in
I
trouble.
don't feel confident. And
Okay,
it's not
that's
even
great.
just because of Russell. I
That's a great
don't
answer.
necessarily trust the receiving core, and the offensive line is definitely much improved from last year. But I don't know if I would trust that if a defense can pin their ears back like they would end up playing. Down the stretch here, they've got Trey Hendrickson, they've got the Ravens again, like Myles Garrett. If you let the defense pin their ears back on this offensive line, I don't feel as comfortable. If they can have a steady run game still and continue to, run the football consistently, then I feel confident.
That's what I want to hear. Great answer.
How do we feel about the Broncos? 38-6 over the Falcons. Absolutely destroyed the Falcons. Both you and I have not bought into the Falcons this year. But I must say, I didn't buy into the Broncos. I don't know if I'm fully bought into the Broncos either.
No.
But I am starting to say they're way better than I thought they would be. I got to give them that.
I agree.
And Bo Nix is playing better than I thought. He's improved at a rate that I didn't see him improving this year.
Listen, Sean Payton, I think we both don't like Sean Payton. And I know that's it's bad because we're supposed to be able to analyze things. We're going to analyze it. But fuck it. I just don't like Sean Payton, so I'm rooting against him. And so but I'll say this. It is alarming as the Broncos are 6-5 that they are 4-0 against the NFC South. Sean Payton's old division, which he knows really well. Now, I know names change things, but Sean Payton has gone on a blitzkrieg against the NFC South. Dan, Bo Nix has 18 total touchdowns. 9 of them are in the 4 games against the NFC South. So Sean Payton and him are lighting up the NFC South. They're 4-0 against the NFC South. They're 2-5 against the rest of their competition, including bad losses to Baltimore and Kansas City, who are teams that should be above them right now and clearly are above them right now. What I will say this about Denver is I'm surprised by this year. I would be very encouraged if I'm a Denver Broncos fan. And I would hope and pray that Sean Payton continues to build the Saints West. I say that because Drew Brees was limited. But what was Sean Payton able to get out of Drew Brees? Accuracy and a system that when it hits was almost unstoppable. Now, Bo Nix is a little bigger, a little more mobile, so he's got a little more freedom. But again, the goal for the Denver Broncos is we're going to have to beat you with a system. Like the Niners beat teams with a system. It's not unheard of. It can be done. The problem is the Niners don't have Patrick Mahomes and then John Harbaugh and Justin Herbert in their division. I said this from the beginning with the Broncos. Broncos fans, congrats, you're 6-5. I got a feeling there's going to be a lot of 6-5 over the next 3-4 years. You know what I mean? Unless they make some drastic changes and grow in a positive way, I'm still not buying into the fact that they'll just all of a sudden become a 14-3 team that is owning this division because of the 2 quarterbacks and the 2 head coaches above Sean Payton. Sean Payton may be just as good or better than the other 2. I don't think he is. I think he's a tier below the 2. Well, 2 tiers below Andy, a tier below Harbaugh. And Bo Nix is clearly a tier below those guys. But you can do a lot of damage with a great system and a great supporting cast. So, listen, if Denver sneaks into the playoffs this year, I'll eat a little crow on that. But I'll just say this. I still think the ceiling is incredibly low with Denver. And for the Atlanta Falcons, I mean, I don't know what else I need to keep telling you here, guys. Their defense is terrible, and it's Kirk Cousins. So when you need him to play really well, he's not going to play well. And then he's going to dominate teams Sunday and a dome at home at noon. They'll probably win this division. Maybe not. They probably will because they have the 2 wins over the Bucs. And they're just going to lose on wild card weekend.
I don't know, man. I feel like the Bucs are about to go on.
Well, I agree with you, but
Mike Evans back.
Most likely they have such an advantage they will. and they'll
Yeah.
just lose at home weekend one in wildcard weekend to a really good Vikings team or a really good Packers team or a really good, Washington team. I would take all three of those teams at Atlanta. Like, what'll be?
Definitely.
Atlanta will be the 4 seed probably, or the 3 seed, and they'll host one of those 3, and they'll just get blown out at home.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. The only other game we didn't get to really was the Texans Cowboys 34-10. We did mention it briefly about the Nico Collins, and
I'll say this: I
all
dropped
that.
the Texans out of my top 10 this week, and that's not
Yeah.
because I disagree. I still believe that the Texans are a solid football team, but I look at the AFC, and I look at Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Buffalo, and Kansas City, and I know Houston's beaten
and
some
the
of those
Chargers.
and I would include the Chargers at this point in time. And I would say I feel more confident on a neutral site, all 5 of those teams would take down Houston. Part of that is because Houston built their team around Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins and were without those two, well, at least one of them, and now they got Nico back, but now without Stephon Diggs, and they were kind of banking on that. I love Joe Mixon. He's been great for them. But there just still feels something off. Their offensive line is not great in pass protection. They get beat pretty easily. And if you look at the great teams in the AFC, they all can rush the passer. And when push comes to shove, right now, I have more belief and faith in the quarterback for most of those teams over CJ Stroud. That being said, the great thing if you're a Texans fan, 2 years with CJ Stroud, it will be 2 years in the playoffs. That's a ton of experience. That is a ton of knowledge for a young and growing quarterback who will eventually eventually will be a real handful for those veteran teams in the AFC. But I dropped them right now because I truly believe in a neutral site, the Chargers, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Bills, and the Chiefs would all beat the Texans right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm on the same boat with you there. So, hey, we got Thursday Night Football. Steelers Browns better win this one. That's for sure. I still can't believe they lost this Cowboys team, but
that was still at least when they had Dak. So I mean, you can at least say that. But, it's funny. I'm just thinking back a year ago. I remember all the conversation about Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels and these quarterbacks. And I'm like, it's too early, blah, blah, blah. Colin Cowherd led his show today. We're talking about Shedeur Sanders going number 1 overall to the Dallas Cowboys. And it's so funny.
But didn't he say like Deion Sanders? They should go for that.
It's a fun thing to think about, right? And maybe Dallas should. Like maybe
I think Deion would be terrible for an NFL team. I personally believe that.
For
I don't think
NFL
men
team, I agree. But for the Dallas
his
Cowboys, I think he'd be perfect. And I think
that would be one of the few places.
And I actually think he'd be pretty good in Dallas. I really do.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I'm like, the cycle never ends, right? Like it never ends. Like
it's always
Caleb and Jaden have played 10 games, and it's like, what's the next shiny toy coming into the NFL?
Yeah.
And it's just like, it just hit me in a weird way. I'm like, can we get through a season here? Can we get through a season? And then I laugh because I'm like, well, last year, Mark, you were like Caleb Williams. I really want Caleb Williams. So it is like a fan basis. I get why if you're a Giants fan, if you're a Raiders fan, if you are a, there's probably other teams that need a quarterback that I'm blanking on right now. Like I get why you're already in that point where you're thinking the Panthers. You're just thinking about next year and what your next quarterback is because that's all you got right now. That's all you got right now. But that is life in the NFL here going into week 12.
That's for sure. And that is life here on the Football Lounge as well going into week 12. So we're going to have plenty more for you coming up this next week. But until then, enjoy all of the football that this week brings. Got 1 week before Thanksgiving, before the holiday season, all of that good stuff. So looking forward to it. Follow us at FB Lounge Pod wherever you get your social media, and be sure to go check out the other shows on the For Frequency's Sake podcast network. We'll see you next week, everyone.
This has been a For Frequency's Sake Podcast Network production. For more great content, subscribe to For Frequency's Sake on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.